Hi, I wanted to make a quick video on the case feeder assembly that I make for the Hornady lock and load press. So this is the kit as it will come from me. I have the main case feeder assembly with the upper case pusher already assembled onto it. I have the lower case pusher which goes on the rail of the press and actually pushes the shells into the shell plate. I have some small parts and some hardware. We have these two blocks here, which I call the rifle risers. Those are to account for larger, taller cases like 223 or 30-06. And then I do include with the kit one spare top bracket, and I'll go into why I do that. And then two parts that you'll need to supply. These two parts are actually from Lee. It's parts for their progressive reloading press. This is the Lee Universal Case Feeder. Comes with these 4 plastic tubes and this little black plastic bracket for the bottom. And then this is Lee's case collator. So these two parts, the case collator is like a $12 part from Lee, and the Universal Case Feeder is like $25 part. So to put this on the press, first we start with the lowercase pusher, and then we slide on the case feeder assembly from the back. And it just bolts to the holes that are already in the back of the lock and load press. Okay, so we have those parts assembled. And there's a little ball bearing on the lowercase pusher here that rides in this slot. So now we just need to add the Lee case feeder to the top. So to start with, the Lee system is designed so that there's two sized holes in here. There's a small hole and a large hole. Their system, you're supposed to use the small hole for like 9mm and the large hole for 45 ACP. I found that the way I have mine designed, you never need to use the small hole. You can use the big hole for everything. So I made this little plastic plug that you stick into the smaller hole. So to put this on the press, you just slide it onto this threaded stud and put the nut on the top. And then you can cinch up this nut from the bottom. And now to adjust the height for different cartridges, there's these two jam nuts down here. So I'm actually going to set this up for 38 special. So I'm just going to take a 38 special shell and just drop it in there. And then I'm going to adjust the height on these two nuts so that there's maybe a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch or so of a gap between this bottom of this black plastic part and the top of the shell. And that should be all the adjustment that's needed. So see the gap there, and then you can actually just turn this whole assembly back and forth to adjust the position over the hole. So then I can just take a handful of 38 special brass and just dump it into the collator. So once you get the tubes full, we can start running some cases through. And here on the first one, we had a hang up here. See, the case didn't drop into the upper slider. So we're just going to take the whole assembly and just rotate it over a little bit until it drops in. And then it should be good to go. So that's really the only adjustments that I needed. So one more part that's included in the kit, this little red plastic nub here. What this is actually for is it goes onto the end of the primer rod. This little fiberglass rod that comes with the Hornady press that goes down into the primer tube here and pushes the primers down. An issue that I ran into a few times is that if you get this in just the right position, this little fiberglass rod will actually catch the lip on the collator there. So I made this little red tip here, and this has enough radius on it that it can't catch that lip, so it'll stop the primer tube from trying to pick the collator up out of the top. So if you're going to be feeding rifle cases or any longer cases through this assembly, then you'll just need to attach the correct size riser block to the top here. So it just kind of friction fits onto the top, and then there is also a screw hole in here, and I include a little screw that you can screw those two together. So I've taken the feeder tube assembly off of this just to show how this works to be manually fed. So when I load longer cases like 30-06 or 270, I personally prefer not to use the tubes, just because the tubes don't hold that many cases anyway. So I actually just feed them in by hand. So I just drop them in the top there. And it works perfectly fine just to manually put them in there, and then you don't have to fiddle with trying to push them into the shell plate. So here I actually got a misfeed, and it's a good opportunity to show one of the features of this. This lower case pusher here being spring loaded actually prevents anything from getting broken if you have a shell that does not go into the case, into the shell plate. So this will automatically just spring load if you, like, say if you have a misfeed like that, or if you accidentally put a wrong case in, like if you have a let's say like a 38 special case mixed in with like 38 super or something like that, it won't break anything. So one other thing that I do want to note on this, actually the reason why I include a spare one of these top brackets is that if you're not paying attention and you get a piece of brass like falls sideways or any piece of debris on there, as you stroke up the press, it'll actually hit this little tube assembly here. And the press has enough leverage, of course, that if you keep pushing on the handle, it will break that top assembly. So usually what happens is it will just break like this little bracket off the top right there. It'll just crack the plastic. So usually you can just repair it. You can just super glue the two parts back together. But I do include an extra one of these just so that if you're reloading on a weekend or something and you accidentally break it, you'll have a spare that you can just swap that part in 5 minutes and you'll be back running, and then you can fix the other part later. So that's, I guess, pretty much all I have to show on that. Been getting really good feedback on it, and people really seem to like this. It's been working out great for me. I've reloaded several thousand rounds with it without really any issues. So thanks.